Hey there, Form Junkies. I'm your host, Huck. I invite you over to facebook.com/ForumJunkies, youtube.com/ForumJunkies, and Twitter, which you can type in the @ and Form Junkies. We're also on Google+. I hope to see you over there. We always need more friends. The first post comes from an individual named Akron on the official forums who writes, with all the new cross-realm activities becoming available to Real ID friends soon, I was just wondering if anyone else thinks that it indicates the arrival of cross-realm BOAs soon. If anyone with a large knowledge of programming could explain why or why not, that would be helpful. I think it's kind of an obvious question here, but go ahead, Darksend. What do you think?
I think I'm surprised they still haven't done it. I mean, when you make a new character, how many things do you get mailed to you? I get Original Collector's Edition, I get Cataclysm Collector's Edition, I get the Authenticator thing, and there's two or three other things I get that I can't recall because I haven't made a new character in a while.
You get a Sparkle
But
Pony, don't you? It's okay. You can
no,
admit it. We're all friends
I've
here.
never bought the Sparkle Pony. I would kill myself before buying that Sparkle Pony.
I have a Sparkle Pony. Continue.
Then you should kill yourself. but but why? How is Blizzard able to mail me all those things, but not make it so that when I buy a BOA on my Druid, it does something to my account? Like, just make something in the account page that's, do you have an authenticator? Check. Send mail. Did anyone on my account buy this item? Check. Send mail. Like, it seems like laziness to me that, I mean, I realize how a small change like that could break stuff, but it seems just like laziness that they're waiting for a big expansion to put it in, even though they could have done it last expansion. They just didn't want to for some reason, and they were just lazy last expansion. They took so much stuff out that was supposed to be in Cataclysm. I feel like this is just another one of those things that the demand for it, since what is there to do nowadays but level alts, that the demand for it is just so much higher that they're going to be forced to do it now, and that the WoW community won't take no for an answer like they did with Cataclysm.
What do you think, Cody?
Well, it is, on a certain level, just basic laziness. And what you can attest to that is how WoW does its databasing system. And from their job openings and stuff, you can tell they run this is to get a bit technical, but they run an Oracle database system, and they use that to link cross realms and to hold most character information. And the thing is when you're using a database system, it's really easy to say, okay, apply this change to this whole file, or like this segment, and to say that's your account. I have an authenticator. So now every single, new row that's made by this account gets this pet. You could just make items work that exact same way. Like, oh, I have, a Bloodied Arcanite Reaper. Now every new character gets a Bloodied Arcanite Reaper in the mail, and say it sells for like 1 copper or something like that, so you can dump it.
Oh, so what you're saying is not, or I kind of took this post as being able to just like send in the mail. You're saying as soon as you buy a BOA, every tune that can use that automatically has that in their mail at level 1.
Yeah. And
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
it's not hard to do. And really what it shows is what Darksend says. If he's not sure if it's laziness, it literally is laziness. But and you see it a lot in certain aspects in WoW, and as, someone who's worked with databasing and stuff like that, there's a lot of things that Blizzard could do that it seems it's easier just to write custom coding for, and then they shoot themselves in the foot because it's like, oh, well, let's do cross-realm BOAs. Oh, well, now we have to destroy our entire BOA system and write an entire compatibility layer with our database instead of doing that to start with. And
I wonder if Blizzard's actually trying to make it so that you can actually physically mail stuff between servers, not even thinking about the easier approach would just be to make it like the Authenticator pet. Like, I really wonder if that's actually Blizzard's thought process. Well, that's the obvious solution, so we didn't even think of it.
Cross-realm mail, even with a database system, if the mail, this is just how you can see it. Like, if the mail was handled, let's say, with a large database, and that database was linked geographically in between the various data centers, that'd be easy to do cross-realm mail. You just say, this character has this mailbox, and now it's going to, sheet 7, subsection B, cell C4, or something like that. And then it just goes there.
C4 in the code? What? Sorry.
And then it
keep
just
going.
goes there, and it just so happens that that file is on a different server. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to like the network, but that's it.
I see what you guys are saying, and that actually I think is where they're going to be going with it, and I think that'd be fantastic. But I do got a question. I'm not that familiar whatsoever when it comes to the foundation of programs and engines such as World of Warcraft, Rift, Star Wars, whatever. With it being a 7-year-old game engine, can that work?
Yes.
They're constantly hacking their own engine all the time. Anytime they put in something new, they are hacking their own game engine.
Case in point.
They've said it before.
Case in point.
That's what they had to do.
The case in point for what Darksend says is the Retribution Paladins. Like last week. Where they just got crazy because of the change to Vengeance. And it was like, oh, look, we get rid of Vengeance, and now it's
I still find that hilarious. They tried to nerf a hunter ability, and the hunters have been put down so much as expect. They find a way to break the coding and destroy, rep. I thought it was hilarious.
Well, WoW's coded.
I go back to when they removed the water inside the instance of Old Hillsbrad while it was still there in the actual world of Hillsbrad. That was the best.
Well, like, it's WoW.
And the fish were swimming in midair where the water was supposed to be.
Mind equals
Best
blown.
bug ever.
But it's like, WoW's just strung together with codes, and if you have like a editor to view like the secure UI elements, there's all kinds of like comments and stuff like that from like the WoW devs where it's like, this is a temporary fix, and then you'll see another comment like a line later that says temporary meaning 3 years, or stuff like that. That it's like, they manage to make something work and they just leave it. So it at times it feels like their development team isn't very professional.
Do you think they will ever create a new game engine for WoW?
They made a new graphics engine with StarCraft. I mean, they upgraded from the Warcraft 3 engine to the StarCraft 2 engine. But an internal game engine? I'd have
This
to
one's
almost
just
say
coming up
no.
over 7 years old.
I'd like...
The game is 7 years old. The engine's probably like 10 or
Yeah,
11 or 12
yeah,
by
true.
now.
Yeah, because I think we could almost say that the internal game engine is probably the same internal game engine that Warcraft 3 was ran on. That if NPCs are just treated as like hero characters.
So was that EA or an A on you, Darksend?
I don't even think it would be possible without deleting every single piece of data on their and just starting from scratch.
You could keep compatibility, but it would be a nightmare. It'd be a total rewrite of the game. Like it'd
So
be back
that's a no then. Just not going to
that's
happen.
a no. Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
Interesting. Okie dokie then. The next topic comes from Groot on MMO Champion, who writes, myself, like many of you, have signed up for the annual pass and are still going through with it. Because, we knew what we agreed to and aren't going back on it, ? I didn't think much on this at the time when I signed up during BlizzCon, mainly because the foresight was distracted by all the shiny videos. Nice. What I'm wondering is when the annual pass folks will be granted the beta access. Will we be the beta crew before they send out open invites? Will ours come out during the or will ours come out during the open invites? And I think I'm pretty sure since the press tour is next week, or not next week, next month between March 13th, March 14th, I believe it is. Doesn't the beta always come out a month after the press tour?
They haven't even started the alpha yet. So as far as I know,
no, we do know that they have started the alpha. It started back in November.
Yeah, closed alpha has been running.
I am gonna kill my friend.
Edit that out.
It's
Plausible
probably like
deniability.
Dev only alpha is what it is.
No, I always get into the friends and family alphas, so I'm gonna kill him for not getting me into this one. But yeah. Well, if you look back on it, they have been so bad with things like this. People, at one point, still had codes that they not only didn't know what game they were even going to be for from a BlizzCon event. They were from the BlizzCon event the previous year, and some people had 2 different sets of codes from two consecutive years that neither one was even, what game is this going to be for? Let alone when am I even going to get to use it? And they have been just so bad about getting, promising these things. But that aside, at this point, the year pass is such a scam because people were sure that the majority of their time was going to be spent after the expansion launched. At this point, we're going to get maybe 1 or 2 months of the expansion out of that annual pass, which is just the biggest ripoff ever. The more they delay, that's honestly what I feel like they're doing. They're delaying they're delaying the expansion as long as possible so that they can get people to renew after their annual pass is up, and that in order they want it or just 1 month. So getting as little time as possible
they can
out of it.
afford that kind of hasty maneuver, though, because let's be honest, if we have to deal with not even a year, if we have to deal with 9-10 months of Dragon Soul content, I'm pretty sure that's going to put a bullet between the eyes of the remaining subbed community. Like, if I don't see MOP dropping June, July, there's going to be a huge subscriber loss. I really do think, because then you get into the debacle with where they had an Ice Crown Citadel where it was way too long. The nerfs were, they happened months ago, and you're dealing with this really watered down content that's supposed to keep you happy. And they've already stated we're not going to put a patch between 4.3.2 and 5.0. So
yeah, and every time there's been a year's break in content, they've done a little filler patch. In between Sunwell and BT, we got ZA, and in between Ice Crown Citadel and Cataclysm, there was Ruby Sanctum. So there's always these little things that they toss out there in between major content gaps. So I mean, that means we should see it in about a year minimum, or 9 months. But yeah. And to answer the actual question about the MOP beta, I'd have to say that it'd probably be when the open beta starts. So you'll probably get the media and stuff start pushing out information.
Which I'm guessing will be April.
And by open beta, you mean
this is going to be after all the media's been in and stuff like that. You're going to have Swifty making YouTube videos.
Well, an open beta you wouldn't need a pass into because everyone's in it already anyway. All you have to do is download the client. So I don't think you mean
exactly.
Open beta.
Okay, so probably not. No, I almost could see. Yeah, so it wouldn't be open. It'd probably be closed beta, where it's closed, but the majority of people who want beta access have gotten beta access, and it's probably going to be late or something like that. And then it probably won't be for long either. I don't know. I'm seeing as we're going to get gypped on it in some way or another. Is it's going to be a teaser that's going to be about 2 months before open beta starts. And they're going to have a month of open beta, and then MOP's going to be released. So it's just going to be hey, everybody, remember this game? Oh, look, you get to play
that's kind of what I worried
now
about when I first heard over the live stream, the annual event and all that. As soon as I heard it, I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. Then I thought, wait a minute, back up. So what I'm doing is I'm paying, what is it? You have to, for 8 months, $15 a month. So over $100. I'm guessing 120, 130. You're paying 120, 130 for a $60 game and a mount. That's what you're paying for. And a subscription to WoW, but that's passive even if you didn't sign up for it. I mean, I'm usually pretty optimistic, but that's pretty a blatant jip that including myself, just sign up for it just because I want the damn mount. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anytime Blizzard says, hey, you're going to get access to a beta with anything, they never follow through on that promise. So, I mean, people should realize that by now.
So, let's look at it. Let's actually try to answer the question instead of just kind of bagging on what we've delved into. When do you think the beta will actually start? Darksend, go.
I have absolutely no idea.
Can you make it?
I honestly don't.
Guess?
Late March, early April. And I say people who bought the annual pass get their invites around May.
After the open beta. Everybody who
not open
who
beta.
bought into that
That'll be
actually
more
are
like-
not allowed to have the beta.
That'll be like the closed beta or something like that. And then people
That'd be
will still get their invitations late, and then open beta will start like a week later. That's just what I'm predicting. That'd be a good idea.
On to the next topic. It is Terraria from the official forums, and this is a wall of text if I've ever seen one. So I'm just going to break it down to the first segment and then different segments, and we're going to talk about each. This probably be the biggest time sink ever in Form Junkie history. So let's get started. Terraria writes, with Cataclysm essentially coming to a close as I post this. Hold on a second. Close? I think we still got a little while. Continuing. I'm wondering if Mists of Pandaria is really going to be worth its cost to me. I am the 0.1%. I am the last of an apparently dying breed. A hardcore 25-player raider. My guild schedule is extremely light compared to most of the guilds ahead of us, raiding 10.5 hours every week. But to a lot of people playing this game, that kind of time commitment is huge. Raid design in World of Warcraft is starting to show a shift in mentality of the player base since the golden era of raiding and Burning Crusade. The amount of content released since Tier 11 has left me concerned. There are many ideas, potentially factors, as to why Cataclysm has had literally half the raid bosses that each of the previous expansions and Classic have had. My thoughts are these. Balancing 10s and 25s with 2 different difficulty settings for each is a very time-consuming process. The lack of success Cataclysm has caused the developers to go back to the drawing board for Mists of Pandaria and leave much less attention on Cataclysm. There just simply aren't enough players raiding to warrant that kind of development time on raids. So, starting with the first thought that they have, balancing 10s and 25s with 2 different difficulty settings for each is a very time-consuming process. Here's my question. Is it more consuming process now since, loot's the same, or is it easier now than it was back in BC and Wrath when 10s dropped, mostly Wrath, when 10s dropped different loot? What would you say?
Well, the first thing you need to realize is they don't balance hard modes. You saw this with they don't balance hard modes.
Alakir,
you saw this with
Sinestra, Ascended Council.
Even going back further to Yogg.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Yogg was just, and Balrog too. I mean, people didn't even think it was mathematically possible. They ran the numbers and said, this fight is not mathematically possible. And then you had stupid stuff going on, like 1 tank and 3 healers in 25 minutes.
Yeah, well, the world first
was the only way to, stuff is not balanced around world first guilds. For world first guilds and the top 0.1%, the balancing is live servers. The devs are watching every single attempt of those guilds and issuing hotfixes from attempt to attempt.
We saw that in Sinestra, especially.
Right. So they do not balance hard modes. They balance 10 versus 25 normal mode. That's it. And then when the hard mode guilds get in there, that's when they start really, they throw some general numbers around. But beyond general numbers and is it statistically mathematically possible, after that they don't really do much. So that's not really a valid point from what I've seen so far for the top guilds.
What about you, Cody?
It's not being tested. Well, it's not even being tested. It's just being like napkin math. Is because I see the devs sitting there and they're like, okay, Heroic Balrog will give him this much health, and then the average player is going to have to do this much DPS, in a 25-man group with, 2 tanks, 5 healers, something like that, and this is the DPS each player is going to have to do. And we figure they'll reach it by week 3 or 4 when a player can do that much DPS. But instead, you have guilds like, Vodka, Paragon, Blood Legion. They're in their week 1, and it's like, okay, 1 tank, 3 healers, and he enrages at 6 minutes, but our first kill is actually going to be 8.5 because we're going to be kiting an enraged boss around for 2.5 minutes while our raid members are dropping like flies. And that's what they do. And so it's the devs don't plan for people literally to just go to the extents they do to break the game. And then with the 10 to 25 balance, they don't even try to balance it. If they tried to balance it, you wouldn't have fights like Heroic Agara. Just the level of difference between them. If it is balanced, it's done in the worst way possible.
Do we balance for 10 and then adjust for 25? Or do we balance for 25 and then adjust for 10? Which is, that's more specific to hard modes. You can tell with the way they do the PTR. For the original hard modes, with Blackwing Descent and that tier, they balanced around 25 and did 25-man PTRs and then adjusted down to 10. With Firelands, it was almost exclusively 10-man hard modes on the PTR, which is shown by Balrog. So how they do the PTR testing has a huge difference on how one difficulty is balanced between another.
The second thought was, the lack of success Cataclysm has had has caused the developers to go back to the drawing board for Mists of Pandaria and leave much less attention on Cataclysm.
Wrong. The devs admitted to it being wrong, and the devs in so many words basically said, Ulduar was such a big success, that's why we do hard modes with the UI option now. Because if we made a big red button for every single hard mode, the big red button would no longer be nostalgic and people would stop thinking of Ulduar as great. That was almost exactly paraphrasing a blue quote from about a week
ago. And they don't necessarily mean just the big red button on Mimron. They mean the metaphoric sense of making an encounter that if you just so happen to stand
everything.
here when this happens, it changes everything.
They said big red button, they said killing ads and beating a hallway in time. They mentioned all the hard modes from Ulduar, so killing it in a different order. They mentioned all of them. I just was paraphrasing. But yeah, it was almost the devs basically said in a blue post, Ulduar was such a big success, so we went to the drawing board to try to keep that a success in your guys' memory. I mean, they basically admitted that.
I think, and my kind of final thoughts on that whole thing, is that I think that Ulduar feeling, that time and investment they make in the how the encounters can change depending on what you do, should be saved for the last content patch. Should be saved for the last content patch. Where you're actually fighting the big baddie of the expansion. I mean, even though there isn't a big boss in the front of Mist of Pandaria, there still will be, in PvE wise, the final boss. And I think that they should make that last encounter kind of like how Ulduar was.
Oh. With smaller instances, too, though, people are getting 7 out of 8 the very first week heroics are open. Whereas people were still having trouble with the keepers. The world first guild didn't kill all 4 keepers until, 2 months, I think it was? And then even then, while they were going up to it, of the guilds that were 3 out of 4, if there were 10 guilds that were 3 out of 4, 3 of them were one combination of the 3, another 3 were a different combination, and so on. Whereas, it was allowing the devs that extra 2 months after it came off the PTR to still do the encounters and make the encounters creative. When you're killing 7 out of 8 hard modes in a week, the devs know we don't have that extra 2 months to make a creative end hard mode boss. And I think that's part of the problem also.
Well, but the thing is they don't even try. Look at Madness. That fight is crap. It's blisteringly hard on 10-man, but it's a walk in the park on 25. And if they were actually trying to aim, just to say, well, here is us.
Well, no, hold on. Difficulty aside, just from difficulty isn't even part of the discussion anymore. It's just these fights are no longer creative.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen everything before, so the community is so jaded that what can Blizzard do as far as new mechanics that we haven't seen before?
Well, no, they did a lot of that in Dragon Soul.
Normally those new mechanics are complete failures.
They did try a lot of new mechanics in Dragon Soul. The whole the ship defense on War Master was something new. Spine of Deathwing was a completely new departure into encounter design.
Wait a minute. War Master Blackhorn, the whole ship thing was not new.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
They had one in Ice Crown Citadel called Loot Ship.
I thought that was a trash pack, not a boss encounter.
You so did that on purpose. You were waiting for someone
you
to
knew
call
I
you
could
out.
not
You had that planned.
You played me, sir. Good job.
But anyways,
The
Spine of Deathwing
go ahead.
was completely new. They hadn't done something like Spine of Deathwing before. They hadn't done something like Madness of Deathwing before, I think. No.
Right, but these things that are supposed to be creative are
Well, yeah, they're bad.
things that are
Madness of Deathwing,
they're not
more
the
or
main
less,
focus of the fight.
It's just Kolagarn on roids, to be honest.
Yeah, I was thinking that while I was saying it. But yeah, they're new ideas. They've put in some new ideas here. Like, Hagara was a fairly... I mean, the lightning conducting, the dancing around the outside, it's ideas I've done before with different bosses, but it combined them together. And then the Yorsha mechanic kind of felt like it could work in Ulduar if the number of oozes you killed like decided your loot. But it's...
You know, this entire discussion is actually something that I discussed with one of my real-life friends here I think it was like today or yesterday or something like that. And we were actually talking about movies, how like movies just aren't good anymore. Like any of the movies coming out just aren't good anymore because the plot behind them have been used so many times. The amount of originality coming from movies and raids, it's just like, what else can you make that hasn't already been, shot to death?
Yeah, and that's a good point.
Which leads me into what I keep pushing for. I think if they want to create something, a completely new original fight or something like that, they need to stop trying to break their system. They need to just... If you wanted a completely new original that you've never seen before, you never thought Blizzard could implement, you would need a new game engine to support it. That's not going to happen, so I kind of get the feeling that the raid content by those standards for the rest of this game's life is going to be meh.
Well, I don't know. Blizzard just kind of needs to keep it simple, stupid. Like, if you look at a fight like Professor Putricide, it was all stuff done before. But it worked as a good fight. There was nothing creative in that encounter whatsoever except the transformation of the off-tank. Other than that, all rehashed mechanics, but it was a good fight. Sindragosa, all rehashed mechanics, good fight.
Oh, you do not call Sindragosa a good fight.
Decent fight.
No, you just lost all credibility with our listeners. Thanks
Okay,
for that.
Next week,
You're
our new
fired.
guest
Edit
host.
out
We don't
that
know
last
who he
part
is
then.
yet, but not this guy.
Edit out that last part then.
No. The community needs to know how stupid you are.
Dear FJ Nation, we are still looking for our guest host. Send in your applications.
No, just
Okay,
save that
okay.
line for the cool story, bro.
Sindragosa was a good fight.
What?
The third thing that they had posted was there just simply aren't enough players raiding to warrant that kind of development time on raids. Here's my point about that, and I'll let you guys talk about yours. The fact that the player base is starting to decline should not warrant them to just go, well, we don't have enough people to play, let's not even worry about it. If anything, they should go, holy crap, we need to get to work and make things even better to draw them back. What do you guys think?
I thought more people were raiding now than ever, it seems like. I mean...
That's all there is. Burn.
I mean, right now on my server, there's, I think, 8 guilds that are 5 out of 8 right now. And I mean, that's probably on the low side. I remember at one point during Blackwing, there were 48 guilds that had at least one hard mode finished before we killed Sinestra. And we were top 50 Sinestra. So, I mean, I don't know how, maybe it's just unusual for our server, but it seems to me like more people are raiding now than ever, especially with those statistics that MMO Champ keeps putting up. I mean, right after a huge nerf, right after Firelands got taken to school, skyrocketing numbers. Is that what it comes to? People cancel their account because they know Blizzard is just going to nerf everything, and then as soon as the nerf comes in, they reactivate their account? I mean, could that be the overarching problem? Is that people just know these nerfs are coming, so they're not excited to raid until they're there? I think that could be an underlying problem.
And that
I don't know if
Which
that
I will
would
have
be a problem. Well, maybe for extremely casuals. I know that if whenever I'm seriously playing, I want to get in there and raid while it's at its, good glory gold moment. I don't want to wait. Once it gets nerfed, we talked about this last week on the show. Once it gets nerfed, it's like you still want to raid it, but it's like it's not as fulfilling, I guess.
Yeah, and I agree with both of your points. When you're losing,
We gotta get a guy that just we gotta get a nerd rager who just hates the world and disagrees with everything.
All
Like
right,
you could tell him, you could breathe
You
air.
gotta get Flame Champ in here.
Okay. No, you're both wrong. When you have less consumer base, you don't have the money to develop as good as you did before. So, if you lose 800,000 subscribers, that's close to $1 million that you can't put into Dungeon and Raid design.
While they still
So
have
Blizzard
10.1 to
might not have
9.8.
the money to develop encounters like they did during Ulduar. They just might not have the staff. I mean, they're developing 3 simultaneous different expansion packs for separate games. And do they have the staff? Do they have the logistic ability to produce a very good raid encounter with the staff and the project deadlines that they have looming? I think that's something else we have to consider. Is because they were working simultaneously on MOP and Dragon Soul. So could they not get their whole design team behind it?
I think the community needs to decide what it wants, though.
The community cannot decide what it wants. Are you serious?
But
the problem with Kata was the fact that Blizzard did listen to the community, and this is what happened.
Right, but that's my point. The problem is Blizzard thought with Firelands there were 7 bosses. In Blizzard's mind, no. Until you have killed 14 bosses in Firelands, you have not finished this tier of content. So when people, don't even try hard modes, they clear all the normal modes week 1. But then they don't even try hard modes, and they just farm 7 out of 7 normal modes until the nerfs go in. And Blizzard goes, well, I thought you guys wanted it harder, so why aren't you trying the normal modes? I mean, it's this back and forth between we want normal modes to be our hard mode content, and then let the hard modes be for the 1%. And then people start crying.
Well, the problem is...
Because Blizzard gave them exactly what they wanted.
It's called...
And then Blizzard gives the criers what they want. And then the people who farm 7 out of 7 normal for 6 months complain again. So it's just this cycle that Blizzard is trying to give people what they want. People don't know what they want.
It's the rose-tinted glasses problem. It's... People look back on, Burning Crusade, and they were like, oh my god, Burning Crusade was so much fun. And what they don't realize was that it took them months to get through Kara. It took them months to get through SSC. And by the time they got to BT and finished BT, they weren't on it for a year. They saw it as, oh my god, there's all this content that's, being released before I'm even done with it. This is fun and it's challenging. And what they don't realize is that was years ago. They had, more time than they had now. They had the time to, to sit in Shattered Halls all night and finish a run. Now they don't. And so now when Blizzard says, okay, here's what it used to be like, people are like, I don't have time to do that because it's not 5 years ago. And that's what happens is when you give people the nostalgia they want. It's like when you have something
they realize
from your
they're not in
childhood.
high school anymore, and they can't just waste all that time.
Yeah, they can't go back. It's like saying you can't go home. How people say that is you go back to how it used to be, and people are like, "Oh, well, that wasn't that great. Now that I'm more mature than I used to be." It's like if you watch old Power Ranger episodes, they aren't that good. I don't know. Closing remark.
What do you think, Darksend?
He was rebutting me. I think you're kind of confused on whose turn it is.
Well, he brought up Power Rangers, and my mental process just went out the window. Well, anyways, this poster had a lot. If you want a good read, I would suggest reading this Forum Junkies. I kind of disagree with the points he made, although, I agree with the generalized feeling that he has, but I don't agree it's with the same points. But, yeah, so.
Well, the other thing is, what's the 1%? What would be a good number to apply to the WoW? Are we talking what? Like where do you draw the line? Is it the 1%? Is it the 0.1%? Is it the 0.0001%? I mean, with 10 million people, what percent? Say, we'll take the Firelands nerf. Before that 20%, what percent killed normal Rag even before that 20% nerf went in?
You can see it right now.
But I think they need to...
If you look on WoW Progress, as of recording, 520 guilds have killed Heroic Spine of Deathwing, a total of 1.11% of all reporting guilds. So if you say that's the 1%, then that means 1% is the top 500 guilds. And in the world, that's not a lot of people. You can't tailor content specifically to those people and have your game succeed. WoW has several million subscribers, and you're tailoring it to less than 1,000. Well, okay, 10,000.
So the top 1% of raiders is 500 out of a million. So that's 0.000000000000000000001% of all WoW players. Yeah, I mean, let's be serious here. What they need to do is, I don't know if you're gonna.
Did your brain stop?
I didn't know if you had more.
No.
If you were gonna touch on each of the rest of the post, or if that's it for the post as far as reading it from it. Okay. If you keep reading the rest of the post, he talks about as being in the 0.1%, he doesn't raid to watch lore. It's nice to know the lore and stuff behind why you're going in and killing these bosses, but I agree, having to hit the way they did activating Spine, having to cancel the cutscene to get into the encounter right away. I mean, what is that, Blizzard? That is terrible game design. So, when I read the thread before we even started recording, my thought was, make every single cutscene, make no hard mode specific loot, or not loot. What am I saying? Make no hard mode specific stuff. Like, sure, the final 10% of Rag was great, but not being able to, if it had been in looking for raid, and not being able to see that phase of the fight and looking for raid, do you know how much outrage there would have been if there couldn't, oh my god, looking for raid isn't the entire fight. What are you doing, Blizzard? You're screwing me over here. So what they need to do is make it so that every single bit of RP is available in looking for raid. And then have none of it in hard modes. Normal mode, okay, but hard mode, take every single scrap of RP out of the hard modes and make it so that you never nerf hard modes until, say, 10,000 guilds have killed it. I don't know. Whatever. But you can't...
The expansion after it released, that's when you nerf it.
I don't know. It just seems like there needs to be something that is sacred each tier, and that doesn't change. I don't know. Maybe that's just me crying about the fact I never killed Heroic Rag because...
You're bad.
Well, no, because I was a druid and we killed it on 10.
Oh, no, you're bad. That's just to hear.
Sounds like your guild wasn't good enough to kill it on 25.
Oh, we weren't. Straight up, we weren't. People are... we have 5 people a night who just don't care and literally kamikaze themselves because they're so tired of wiping on this on a given fight after so
What's
long.
World in Flames? Oh, I'm dead.
Well, that's all for us tonight, Forum Junkies. Before we go, let's kind of end it on a different note tonight. Let's talk about, I don't know about you, Cody, but Darksend, what are your plans here in the very near future for whether it be YouTubing or gaming or such?
Reckoning releases in an hour and 23 minutes ago. And
when's the Skyrim thing going to come back?
Don't make me punch you.
Is that all?
Well, you made me miss Final Fantasy last week, so...
Oh.
I literally left last week to run out and get my midnight release of Final Fantasy. I left Skype running.
Yeah, we
as I
know.
was
Yeah,
we were
running out of
laughing
the
about it.
house. And I didn't even get there in time because as I was on the bridge at the traffic light, I saw them pulling down the metal things to close the windows. And I knocked on the door, and they said, "No, go away, you're too late." Even though I saw them locking the door as I was sitting at the traffic light.
Yeah, we were picturing you running shirtless down the street.
Yeah, we were like, yeah, but he's running shirtless down the street.
You were
right
still in
now.
the conversation while we were having a conversation about you.